might want to the board and see whether you can do that.
So Gordy, just so you know, I started the recording, so you're officially being recorded now. I just do that because I've got a terrible habit of not remembering to start the recording.
Those are replaced.
And we'll get started in 2 minutes.
They attach the unit by Velcro. So they bought the unit, and then for each convention they had them together.
Okay.
Velcro's on.
I'm using them around my house. I have one that says clean your room. Put it up at the front door.
Yeah, well, Bill Brown, I visited with him at Amherst, and he finally went out and bought those for his business. And he used to have to take 2 huge suitcases full of all the stuff for his business. Now all of those fit in. We got 3 of them, and they fit in the glass. They fit in 1 suitcase along with all the stuff we downsized.
I still think we got the best logo.
He says it used to take him 45 minutes to set up his group at the train show.
Yeah.
Now it takes 15 minutes.
If somebody joined our phone,
Okay.
it's not showing up. It's like no possible.
So they have, you may notice the 1946 to 2022 road engine numbers on that logo. Did you ever notice that? Pretty slick. When the NER started and then what year we're going to have it. It's a great photo, too.
All right. Looks like the last of the people are coming in here. So, everybody, welcome to the February 2022 Nutmeg Division meeting. Going to start off a little unusual this time. It's my distinct pleasure to have Gordy Robinson join us, who is the president of all of the National Model Railroad Association. Gordy, for information for yourself relative to us, we are the Nutmeg Division in the Northeast region. That is primarily the state of Connecticut and a little bit of the state of Massachusetts. Recognizing you're in Scotland and may not know why in the heck we are named after a spice. That is a colonial legend in Connecticut about selling nutmeg, false nutmeg, to people who think they got cheated by the people from Connecticut and they got wood instead of actually getting nutmeg as a spice. So for some reason that has stuck, and then up to this day, Connecticut is known as the nutmeg state. We have about 150 members, so you know, in the Nutmeg Division. Since COVID has started, we've adopted a hybrid meeting model. So we do 3 things to reach our members. First off, we have this meeting in person. So we are allowed to meet in person here. We're in the Wethersfield, Connecticut police station. They give us the room for free. But we also record it, as you are, like I told you when we started the recording, the free conference call is recorded. And then we will put that up on YouTube. So people are dialed in now watching it from their homes live. We have people here in the room live. And then we're going to put it up on YouTube later for other people to join. So, you know, it's how we've adopted because of COVID, but frankly, I think it's getting more members involved and a better involvement in the division. I have Gordy's bio up here for everybody. What people may not know about Gordy's relatively new president for the NMRA, but he's in Scotland. He lives in Scotland, and he doesn't just live in Scotland. That's why I put the map up there. The end of that red arrow all the way at the top is the Orkney Islands of Scotland, which is where Gordy actually lives. So this is pretty impressive, and we really appreciate Gordy had given a brief talk about the national level to one of the other divisions in the, I think it was one of the mid-eastern or mid-central divisions. And so we asked him when we saw that if he'd do it for us, and so he's graciously agreed to do it. So now, although he is in Scotland, if you read his bio, he is actually modeling southeast Wisconsin. So Gordy, that's northern Illinois, southeast Wisconsin is where my family's from. So glad to see that you're, you know, modeling that part, which is, by the way, probably the mecca of the model railroading world, with Kalmbach Publishing being there, and probably some of the biggest train shows you've ever seen. So thank you for joining today, Gordy. And just by introduction, if you see me on the face, I'm Jeff Hankey. I'm the superintendent of the Nutmeg Division. So appreciate you coming, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. I don't know how many of you got in the room there. I can't see everyone, so.
So we've got about 10 people in the room, and we got about 10 people on, and then we'll probably reach another 50 or so when we put it up on YouTube.
Cool. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I know it's the afternoon in the UK, but hopefully you can hear me. If there's anything that I say or my accent is too difficult to understand, then just let me know and I'll repeat what I said and try to make it sound more American than English. So yeah, I live in the Orkney Islands. I grew up though in Manchester, so just outside Manchester, in a place called Wigan, that's in Lancashire, which is the Queen's county. Her Majesty the Queen is the Duke of Lancaster, so she has the dukedom of the county where I was born. So it's a bit different being up in Orkney from being down there, though, a little bit more remote. I have had the pleasure of going to Connecticut a number of times. I've been to Danbury a few times. I have had a cab ride in an FL9, so I guess that qualifies me to talk to folks around the New Haven. But yeah, I have done that. So I appreciate having the opportunity to come and talk to you this morning. So you will be about the 17th division that I've spoken to, and I'm not sure what opportunity previous presidents have had, but certainly if you've seen anything of what I've been doing in the last 3 to 4 years, not just during COVID, but before then, I do use technology to communicate with people. I think it's really important that we at national level come down to division level to meet with members, to understand and hear what's going on. And obviously, being in Orkney, it would be all too easy for me to be completely isolated from what's going on in the rest of the world. Although, as my wife will testify, and my daughter, who's 3 years old, who talks to people all over the world every day, and tells everybody at the nursery school, it's just like pre-K to you guys, tells all the children that she's been speaking to people in America and telling people she's been speaking to people in Australia, and they're really, for folk on a little island in Orkney, it's quite unbelievable. But yeah, I do get out there and talk to everybody. So there's a lot of things going on at national, some challenges which I think you all see and see us facing all the time around infrastructure and investment in the past, which we're trying to undo. But there's probably the biggest change that's going to affect everybody will be the introduction of a digital NMRA magazine. So for everyone from the 1st of April, well, around April, let's say that, so it'll be the May edition of the NMRA magazine, you'll start to receive that digitally. And in order to do that, you'll need to be signed up to the nmra.org website. So if you're not already signed up to the nmra.org website, go and do it. If you listen to a podcast by a gentleman called Lionel Strang, who used to write for Model Railroader, he also writes the Why You Should Join the NMRA article that's on our website. He struggles with technology, but even he managed to register for the website because all you need is your membership number. So his biggest challenge to registering with the website was finding his membership card. So once you've crossed that bridge, you should be okay. But when you're registered for the NMRA website, you'll be able to access the digital version of the NMRA magazine in April from the website. There'll also be a first for the NMRA in the North America, although the British region have had an app in the past. There'll be a mobile app that will work on smartphones and tablets, the way you'll be able to store and read your NMRA magazine and other things in the future. So it's quite exciting. It's a big push forward for us to be able to communicate with all of our members. About 75% currently in the US receive the print magazine. The NMRA magazine is part of your membership, so it's costing you like $82 a year, and if you choose to go digital, it'll drop to 68. So it does make a difference to your wallet, and also it means that over 25% that we're not connected to are now receiving news and update from the NMRA, which is important. I mean, divisions and what goes on at division level is the life and blood of the NMRA. It's what most people's interaction with the NMRA is. However, I think COVID has proven to all of us, and Jeff was just mentioning earlier, that the opportunity to do this, to have Gordy join you from Orkney in your division meeting, to have clinicians come in from all over the country to talk to you, to have people join after the fact or remotely, where you may have not been able to travel in, especially in winter. I've been in Connecticut when it snows, and there's some people that can drive and there's some people that can't. So I can imagine that in winter it can become a challenge to get to some of the division meetings and opt sessions, etc. So there's a whole new world out there for us, and we really need to be better connected. So it's nice that we're going in that direction. There's a few other things going on at national with respect to the IT infrastructure. So there's some long overdue upgrades happening. They have been happening for a while, but not actually being done, if people understand what I'm saying there. So verbally that it's happening, but it's actually being done is a different thing. And now it was being done this week, which took the NMRA website offline for 24 hours at short notice, unfortunately. But with IT things, as I think you can appreciate, if you leave them, it's like a car. It's like a car. And my grandfather used to paint nose art in the Korean War, and he said to me, he said, if a car and a computer are like a horse. If you don't feed it and you don't water it, it drops dead. And that's effectively what's happening to the NMRA's IT. It's not been being fed, it's not been being watered, it's not been serviced, and it's going to fall over if we don't do something right now. So there's a lot of work going on there that involves an upgrade to the database at headquarters, which will help there. Also major upgrades to the back side of the website, so that under the hood. Hood's the right term for you guys. Yep, under the hood of the NMRA's website is all being upgraded, and then things like renewals and stuff will actually work without throwing problems for certain people. So that's all what's going on, but there's other projects as well. We're looking at a new communication tool in addition to the new marketing software that we get through the app that will be coming out. We'll also be looking at a new online communication tool to help groups and special interest groups, smaller divisions, and members in general really communicate without having to go to social media. I guess up in the northeast, I hope it's a little bit less political than last night, where I had a division that kind of spanned the Mason-Dixon, which was a little bit dodgy, and you know, one group voted for one guy and one group voted for another, and one group liked Twitter and one group liked Facebook, and we ended up with a fight. So I don't want to end up with that. So we're looking to provide some new tools for members that are not on social media, and we're also working in our education department to improve access to education materials. And I'm hoping, I know a lot of you go to Springfield as it's in your division, sort of, or just across the border. Certainly I know some people stay in your division when they go to Springfield, so I think it is in your division. That will be hopefully announcing what that means for our education department at Amherst in 2023. So we'll be doing a bit of an announcement there, and so you guys will get to see it firsthand and understand and hear about what that is. So yeah, that's really it at national. But the real reason for me coming to see you guys at division level is so you not just so you get to see my face, because I appreciate that's probably not attractive to look at, but it's so you can give me some feedback and ask me some pointed questions if there are any out there, because it's really important that I hear your feedback, I hear what's annoying you, I hear what you're happy with as well, so that I can feed that back. So that's really why I'm here, Jeff.
Well, I appreciate that, Gordy, and I'll tell you. The reference between a bonnet and a hood, I don't know if everybody got that. He was struggling hard not to call the hood a bonnet, but I did appreciate the difference. Thank you for telling us what you're doing at the national level. I will tell you personally, I feel like the things that are going on now seem to be adding traction. I do appreciate the, everything from the new logo to the new magazine, new website stuff, new ways to communicate. I think that's important, and I think, at least from my time, I joined NMRA in 2009. If I look back at those, whatever that is, 13 years, we've come a long way. And I think you're the right person to be in the job to drive that, especially with an IT background, of how we are going to continue to reach more members in different ways and add value all the way from the level that we're at in the division all the way to the national level. So, and really looking forward to Amherst next year already for that announcement. That'll be good. We have folks here, so who are longtime Amherst Railway Club members, so people who are really involved in our division in our region and running that meet as well. So that's cool. I'll open it up to see if anybody has any questions who's in the room. Does anybody have any questions for Gordy or anybody? Oh yeah, go ahead, Bob.
I was wondering, is the minutes of board meetings online or published anywhere we could see them?
I don't know if you could hear the question, Gordy, but he was curious as to whether or not the national level board meeting minutes are accessible to members. Are they online or posted anywhere?
Yeah, they're not very exciting, but yes, they are on the NMRA website. And we also made a change in summer last year where we actually published the board members' reports in full on the website as well. So if you go to the organisation and About Us pages, you can find out it's got a page there for board of directors. You can go and have a look at it there. The minutes are there, and also the reports that each individual director made about what they have or unfortunately may have not been doing between meetings. So all of that is now on the website and fully accessible.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had a question. I know it was a long, drawn-out process to get the Sacramento Railroad Museum display up and running. Has there been any feedback or from the museum as to how that's received out there? I've personally never been to Sacramento, but maybe somebody has. I was wondering how it's been handled.
Well, COVID aside, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world to open an exhibit like that in the middle of COVID, right. But it's been very well received. Everyone that's actually seen it has given fantastic feedback. People are very happy. It's a very good exhibit. It shows the NMRA in a great light. There's been a few niggles around making sure that it's well signposted to people that are visiting the museum, making sure people can go there. And there's also at the moment a few issues with. I don't want to get into US politics because you all should know my view. Life would be better if you had a 95-year-old in the White House, that was female, that we referred to as Her Majesty rather than Uncle Joe. But there are some political reasons for people wanting to leave California at the moment, and there are a significant number of NMRA members who've been involved in the exhibit who are leaving California, and that's posing us a little bit of a problem going forward, which will be coming in front of the board of directors next week at the winter board meeting. But the exhibit itself is fantastic. It's very well maintained. It's all complete. The feedback is better than we could have hoped. It's certainly getting some interest in the organisation. But we've got to now start moving from build to business as usual, and that's never going to be a smooth ride in the middle of a pandemic. But it's not a critical point yet, but we are working through those challenges. Other things to note over there in the west, what's happening out west. I got some feedback from a division. They put on a thing for families where they build a layout in a pizza box. Now, you've got to understand that when I first heard about this, I was thinking about European portion sizes, and I was thinking a HO layout in a pizza box is not really going to work because most pizzas in Europe are 10 inches. So it's like, this is a bit tight diameter. However, they assure me that they have larger pizzas out in Utah. So this program is extremely successful to the point that they had 40 kits ready and 420 people families turned up to build a model railroad last month. So they were well oversubscribed. So the hobby in general actually is absolutely exploding. I know I watched the videos. I couldn't get to Amherst this year. I did get some people get very upset with me and send me some quite offensive messages about it. But unfortunately, I think what you've got to understand is I made a decision back in October to go back working in the hospital. I think it's like if you've worked in a hospital before, you're in the middle of a pandemic, you see people struggling, they ask you for help, you go and help. So I am back working in a hospital full time here in Orkney, and there's no way in the middle of the Omicron peak that I could have got on a plane and flown to North America and left everybody behind working that. So I apologise to everyone that I couldn't go to Amherst this year, but yeah, it's just one of those things. I will be there next year. However, the hobby, I know that the Amherst show, I watched it on the YouTube cameras. I thought, given the Snowmageddon and all the other issues going on this year, I thought it was reasonably well attended. Certainly everybody that I've heard from said it was a fantastic event. I'm jealous that I wasn't there because actually being able to get around that much without being bumped into would have been fantastic, but it is what it is. I couldn't get there. You know, and I think that aside, I think the hobby has grown. It is growing. Pico have I don't know if people know this, but Pico have a museum, right, in the UK, where on site at the factory. Well, they've decided no one's getting fed at the museum anymore because they used to have this fantastic, huge dining hall that looked out over the sea and had all their exhibits and their ride on railroad and everything. Well, they've basically emptied all the kitchens and all the dining hall out and turned it into a factory because they can't keep up with capacity. They just cannot keep producing it. It's not that they can't get the raw materials, that they can't produce enough, and they're working a free shift system at Pico for the first time. So that tells its own story. Not Pico, Hornby in the UK were up last year 63% in sales, which puts them into profit for the first time in over 10 years. And that's a big thing because that means they've had to admit to the government they're having to actually pay tax. So that's quite a big thing for them to do. I'm sure they could have squirreled that money somewhere. And also, ASU Locksound sold 264% more decoders in 2020-21 than they did the year before. So in the middle of a pandemic, that's massive. And the chip crisis as well, so it's just causing them production problems. And ScaleTrains.com have told me that the average age of a person who bought their products last financial year, so 2020-21, was 35.4 years old. So if that's, you can consider how many of us have possibly bought something from Scale Trains, and now I'm not 35 yet, so I suppose I shouldn't say us, but the majority of people that have bought, that I know that have bought Scale Train stuff are certainly over 35. That's a good indication that there's a good cohort of younger people, and you see them at shows. I'm sure you do. I see them online and at shows. So the hobby's in a much better place than it's been, and now it's just my job and everyone else's job in the NMRA to make sure that we tweak the organisation or add more extra benefits to the for members of the organisation that will appeal to bring in the next sort of generation. And 30 years ago, in 1992. And in 1992, that's when my dad decided at 5 years old that I could start working in the family business, and my job was to count door knobs for passenger car kits, the brass passenger car kits. Well, they're in O-scale, but they're still tiny. So that was my little job to do at 5 years old. By the time I was 12, I'd progressed to having to make 100 pairs of couplings before I could do my homework at night after school. That was the European screw-link couplings, and I would assemble the whole thing. Anyway, the organisation then was in a position of 28,000 members. The average age was 56. From 1992 to now, what we've seen is the average age increased by about 9 to 12 months per year since 1992. So it ended up at like 79.4 or something like that at the beginning of 2020, which is not a good average age of an organisation. However, following there was a significant decline in membership in 2020 all the way up to August last year. Since August last year, we're in a position where globally we're up 404 members. 50% of those are in the United States. In January, we recruited an additional 9 members. This is net. I don't talk about how many people, new members joined us. This is, new joiners taking away people that didn't renew or left. And we've seen 26 rail passes. So the organisation is seeing growth for the first time. If we can sustain that, that would be nice. So the growth in the hobby is also translating into growth for the NMRA slowly but surely. So it's a much more positive picture and positive outlook than maybe it was definitely than it was in 2020. It was quite painful to lose all of our in-person events. So
right.
There we go.
Well, I'll tell you here in the Nutmeg division, so Ron Pelletier's our communications chair, and he actually reaches out to all the members who are on the border of actually falling out of renewal. So the region's nice enough to give us a list of folks that are 30 or 60 or 90 days overdue, and we try to reach out to those folks and get them a reminder to renew. So, I think everybody's got a part to play in that. Gordy, I appreciate you trying to champion that, but I think all of us can help trying to get people to keep their memberships active. Does anybody got any other questions for Gordy while he's on?
Gordy, I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Steve. And
Hi, Steve.
I appreciate your comment about Pico. I'm extremely fond of their products, and I've got an awful lot of their turnouts and Flex Track in the basement. Unfortunately, nearly all of it's still in the boxes. It's waiting to go, but it's there already. So that's really encouraging news. I'm sure a lot of people don't realize, unless they've read the Pico catalog, that I believe they're the #1 manufacturer of track and turnouts in the world. Something like that. It's not something people think about too often, but it is a fact. And my goodness, now that they're making 3 shifts a day, wow, somebody's buying the stuff. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and it's good for the hobby. It really is.
Yeah.
But I think you need to be careful how many people you tell you've got all that track in the basement, because there's still a world shortage of it. But I don't know if it's quite got to the Bitcoin level yet, but keep hold of it.
I better keep the security cameras turned on.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. I can remember this time last year I was scrabbling to finish part of my layout to finish my MMR. I needed to do so many more feet of scenery, and I needed more track. And I had people from all over the British region sending me offcuts of Pico Flex Track because we just couldn't get any. So, it's a nice place to be that they've been able to expand. But these things take time. It's the same as the NMRA. So I can't turn the NMRA round in 180 degrees overnight, but we can start to course correct as we go, which is what we're doing at the moment, and it's paying off, so it's nice.
Yeah, I tuned in a little bit late, so I don't know if you would discuss this, the subject of the conventions, the annual conventions.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit leery to get together with a big group, so I won't be going to the one in St. Louis this year, but I'm fully geared up for the one next year. But I haven't heard where it's going to be. Is it determined yet, or am I just?
Yes. So 2023 will be in Dallas Fort Worth in Texas, at the Gaylord Resort in downtown Dallas Fort Worth. I think it's Dallas, not Fort Worth. Maybe it's Fort Worth. I don't know. It's that. For me, I get on a plane, it goes to an airport that says Dallas Fort Worth. I have been 3 times before, by the way, and then I just get an Uber. But it's in that general area. It's hot. I tried, Steve. I said, guys, if we're having a convention in Texas in August, I want outdoor air conditioning. But apparently they don't have such a thing, which is a shame, because I said everything's bigger in Texas, but not outdoor air conditioning apparently. But what I can tell you is that they have some of the can you call them Western roads? I suppose you can, sort of. Some of the Western railroads that run through Dallas are sponsoring the convention next year and are promising some models in 1-to-1 scale to be around in the area that may be special models for the event. I'm not promising any particular special model, just feeding back that they said special models. So that should be fun. It'll be a big convention, but NMRA full stop, it's worth talking about. And the thing is, I shouldn't do these things because I'm far, far too honest, and I probably say more than I should, but I don't believe I work for the Freemasonry. I believe this is the NMRA, and we should be honest and tell you the real story. We haven't got a convention after Texas at this point. Now, I'm hoping there'll be a bid next week from a convention out west, from a team out west, but there isn't any other after 2024 on the cards even. So if you guys in the Nutmeg division wanted to hold a national convention,
Connection's going bad here, Gordy. You're breaking up there. Sorry.
Then absolutely you could, and I think we need to really sit down and evaluate. It's something that we're having conversations about at national. It feels like a pretty regular basis at the moment. It's at least every 6 to 8 weeks this conversation comes around as to how sustainable the model is for conventions. The conventions at the moment are very expensive for people to attend, especially on a fixed income. They are in person only. There's no virtual element to it. There's no connectivity. That's not a bad thing because I do believe that the social aspect is really important, and you get more done when you're face-to-face than you can do in multiple online meetings where only kind of one conversation can take place. But yeah, we need to review how we do national conventions and regional conventions. We need to look at what we're doing going forward because no one coming forward tells it wanting to do it, and you guys feigning a connection issue when I may even mention it tells the story that I'm trying to tell as well. I'm trying to say that this isn't something that people want to do, but it is something that people want to attend. So how do we make it? How do we bring it back around so it being something that people want to be involved in again, that's deliverable? However, that all having been said, St. Louis will go ahead. I hope that COVID will be more of an endemic than a pandemic come summer, but I work in a hospital, so I'm not going to lie and say that I can promise anything like that. But certainly Texas. I don't think Texas has noticed COVID since the beginning of it, but they have assured me that they will have the convention. They've got enough space. I mean, it's Texas. Come on, they've got enough space for everything to be quite distanced, if you wish. And we'll see where we go from there. But everybody's got to make their own decision and do what you feel comfortable with. But there will be both conventions will be good, and will not be getting cancelled. I can tell you, not after the last 2 years. Can't go through that again. So.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why we all cringed in here, it's because my predecessor volunteered the Nutmeg Division to host the Northeast Regional Convention this year. So we are all scrambling to host the Connecticut Yankee 2022 Northeast Region Convention. It'll be in September of this year. So we're doing a lot of work to get the regional convention done. So when you said national, all of our hearts exploded. We're like, no, we just want to finish the regional convention.
It's good to know that you're having practice this year then. And
it had been I think about 10 years since the Nutmeg Division hosted one. I think it was about 10 years ago that we hosted one. So we're thinking like once every decade is a pretty good pace. So
see, whatever you do, in anything that you do, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So it doesn't matter what you do. It will never go exactly as you plan it to. We should all know that. I can say that as an MMR that plenty of project did not end the way it was intended at the beginning. But yeah, I'm not putting any pressure on anybody. But if nobody steps forward, there will just simply be no convention. It's as simple as that. That's the position that we will end up finding ourselves in, and a lot of people get a lot from it. So it would be a shame for that to be the position that we end up with. Certainly, the Brits will never volunteer to host a national convention again after what's happened there. But that's politics. And like I say, on my little island, I live on a 3.5 square mile island. There's 400 families living 3.5 square miles. That's the island that I live on. And there's 2 NMRA members. one is not my wife. One lives down in the village. He lives about 150 yards from my front door in a nice house. It's not that old. It was built about 1880, something like that. But it's a nice big stone house. It's got 3 foot thick walls, very, very typically Scottish. And he lives there. And I always say we've got to be careful how many more people we tell about the trains, because once we get a third NMRA member in the island, we'll have to form 2 model railway clubs. You know?
It's so true. But anybody else? Last call. We've kept Gordy on way too long, but we appreciate it. But thank you for the talk this morning, and really appreciate you. First time ever NMRA president joining the Nutmeg division meeting. So thank you so much, Gordy, and appreciate you being willing to do this. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. So if anyone's shy and has questions, you can always email president@nmra.org, and I will do my best to respond. If you don't get a response within a couple of days, then email me again. Just assume that the IT system's failed in the background, because I always respond within 24 hours. Anyone who's emailed me, I'm pretty quick at coming back to you. So please do reach out anytime, and I'll do whatever I can to get an answer to your questions. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gordy.
Thank you. And I'm going to go back to our normal broadcast. So switch gears here. That was pretty cool. Really appreciate Gordy dialing in. That's neat to see what's happening at the national level. I'm hoping our meeting doesn't go like this locomotive in Wethersfield, but I was looking to. I like to spice it up a little bit on the presentation with some Wethersfield. We did the Cheshire pictures when we were in Cheshire, so did some Wethersfield pictures. And apparently, this was a big deal that the locomotive fell off the tracks there. It looks pretty much like my layout. That's good.
How long ago was that?
I don't know. I didn't get the dates off these. I was running these this morning, so I emailed the rest of the board members and the officers and told them that I did my 2 clinics. I got those ready. And I totally forgot to do this, so I did this morning. So I didn't get the dates on those. But we're well past this timeline. If you were expecting to stay on this timeline, you're mistaken. That was the Gordy slide. So we're going to go through basically the standard stuff. I'll try to rocket through this so that we can get to the 2 clinics, because that was a good half hour with Gordy, but I want to make sure we're passing out the information. Don't know what's happening with the display there of the dates. Something happening there. But just so you didn't know, we did mention the St. Louis show. That is August 7th to the 13th. There's some other train shows I want to put out there. The good news is that train calendar is getting booked in the summer pretty solid. So I only have 5 on the list here between now and I do it until the next meeting, if you were wondering why I pick shows to list. So I pick any show that I have a reference of between this meeting and the next meeting we're going to have. Right? And if it's right on the bubble, I may put it on there too if it's, April 10th or something. But so we got 5 on there across the entire Northeast region, but there is one in Connecticut almost right before we get back for the next meeting, and that's in Ansonia, if anybody wants to go to that one. I would say just by glancing at it this morning, there's 2x or 3x in the summer months compared to what you're seeing here. So I think that valve's reopening, right? I mean, the stuff with the masks going away in schools and that kind of thing. I think people are kind of like, we're feeling optimistic that we're getting to an endemic instead of a pandemic, so that'll be good. Hopefully we can get more and more train shows on the calendar. A couple of things in the region, and I think it was an October meeting that I told you they finally updated the NER website that they had been working on for like 2 years. Dave Abrams was our old webmaster. Dave's had a lot of health problems, so it took him a very long time to get it finished. As soon as he finished, we got a new webmaster, and the first thing he did, that's the new website. So he updated the website in like 3 days. If you go on there, look, it's got a new feel. I'll be honest with you, when he rolled this out at the NER board meeting, so I represent us at the regional board meeting, someone complained that was a Western Railroad in the background. I'm like, please, that's like a really good train. I don't know who did that model, but with the trestle, looks pretty good. So, if you're upset that that's a Rio Grande locomotive, I'm sorry. It's pretty good. So, what is going on with my dates here? But I don't know what's going on with the dates. But in red there, just so you know, we, Nutmeg Division, will be hosting the in-person convention that's going to be done once a year. That's, you know, we'll have Ken May give us an update. Ken's here today about that here in a second. But if you didn't know, because we started the virtual conventions during COVID, the region has decided to continue one of each every year. So the spring will be the virtual convention that's called NERX. And if you've ever seen the logos, the X is actually like the train crossing sign, right? The yellow one with the black X on it. And then in the fall will continue to be the in-person convention. So we have a website as well for our convention that has been established, which Ken may touch on when you talk. So we have a Connecticut Yankee is the name of our convention, and it's up there now as well. You see the beautiful banner is made that we actually displayed at the Amherst Railway Show at the NER table. We had a regional table, which Ken, myself, and
login page didn't show up.
Somebody's got to go on mute there. There's who that is. Ken, you want to give a quick overview of the convention?
Sure. We're working hard on the convention. I've been working on the layouts and comp sessions portion of the website lately. I hope to have the last layout and the comp session page completed by the end of this next week. We have about half of our clinic schedule is committed. But if you have and would like to present a clinic at the convention, please talk to Jeff because he's our clinic coordinator. We have 51 spots and he has about 30 commitments, so there's still plenty of room open if you want to give a clinic. We have 18 layouts committed, and about 12 of those layouts are committed for op sessions. So Jim is doing the op sessions, John Heath is doing layout visits, and we still have the display room in the hotel to get worked out. My chairperson is not going to be around, so he resigned from his position. So for now, I'm handling that. But if one of you would like to volunteer to manage that aspect of the convention for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday day, I would be more than willing to welcome your assistance. We've made a whole bunch of flyers to be handed out at the Eastern State Show when the snow came. So I have lots of flyers left over. So if you would like to take some, I have quite a selection here today. If you'd like to take some home and hand them out to people, or if there's a coffee shop in your area, you'd like to drop a dozen off there for people to pick up, please see me afterwards to go back. Otherwise, if you have any other suggestions for program options, I'm more than excited. John Kim has arranged a trip on the Nottingham Railroad for us, which includes cycling to shop club.
That's right.
So,
Here's the rear mine.
so that's going to be an activity that people can drive themselves down to Waterbury and take a ride on the Nottingham. So I think we have a wide and varied program, but you can always be lighter and more. Thank you.
Yeah, just like the old A-Team show in the 80s. We're loving it when a plan comes together. So it looks like it's going well. It is, if you can't read that, that is September 15th to the 18th. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you are interested in the clinic, you know, we have enough places in schedule. I can basically give you any time spot you'd want, right? Because we do 3 rooms simultaneously, I believe. Yeah, three rooms simultaneously when we do clinics. So plenty of availability and opportunity there. So thank you. And a membership sin? Oh, sorry, someone say something?
Yeah, Jeff, this is Steve. I have a question about the clinics. Are you going to have to double up on some of them just to fill up the slots? Is that your expectation?
So if it comes to that, we would. There's an element that we are, like, I'm going to say, you know, don't go share it with friends, but I think we're like 90-ish kind of % sold on having the Northeast Prototype Meet guys join us, and they would bring a bunch of clinicians themselves. So I'm pretty confident if that happens, we'll fill out the schedule easily. But I mean, I've got people who said, you know, I'd like to give one clinic, but if you need me, I can give you 2 or 3, right? And I've got them down for 1 right now, but I got them asterisked on the list that says, hey, they could do a couple more if we want a couple more. So, do I think we're going to fill it? Yes. I think we'll fill it eventually, be it with either of the groups. You brought up a very interesting point, though. Since we do have so many activities, and we're talking about, you know, the Naugatuck tour, we're talking about 18 layouts, we're talking about the op sessions. There was feedback in the previous convention that people were like, darn, I can't do everything always at the same time. There's 3 things I want to do at the same time in the convention. To me, that's a good problem to have. Happy to hear that, as opposed to you telling me I'm sitting at the bar drinking because there's nothing to do here, right? But what we may do is offer like an early and a late version of the clinic, the same clinic done twice so that you can do it. I've presented at the national clinic, and that's the rule, which, by the way, nobody told me, so I missed my first clinic, right? There was 2 incidences. You always had to do your clinic twice. That's the national rule. That is not the NER rule, but I am open to it if anybody wants to give their same clinic more than once to give people flexibility. I think it's a good idea, but I just haven't pulled the trigger yet on that because I'm still want to leave the spots open for the prototype meet guys. Okay. One thing on all the positions, I did talk about clinic coordinator. I'm only clinic coordinating for the convention. I am not the clinic coordinator for the whole division. So if you'd be like to set up clinics for these division meetings, which is 6 times a year, 2 clinics a time, I'd be happy to have your name so you could take that. Currently, the people whose names are in black on this list have been kind of sharing, finding clinics and things, but we really do need a clinic coordinator, and we really do need the social media part of it really is adding the stuff to Facebook, adding the stuff to YouTube, which I do currently. Finance-wise, we're just raking in the dough. No, that's right. We have no deposits, no expenses. But we have whopping $3,400 in the bank. This is Wethersfield, by the way. If you're wondering what that is actually a streetcar trolley, you know. That's a powered one, but when you wait to the end, I'm going to show you one that's not powered. I know, you're waiting for it. Okay? Communications-wise, I think these things are mature now, just so you know. I'm trying to communicate to everybody so they know what we're doing as a division. We are sending out emails. We do send some things out in snail mail. Ron has made some progress, but we're not up and running yet on constant contact, right? Chuck has made some stuff too for constant contact. Constant contact is the vehicle that you get all of your emails from the region and NERX. So those glossy, Gucci-looking emails that come with all the cool banners and all the cool photos. The most NERX one recently just came out. If you got it, I think it was like a couple days ago it came out. That those are out of constant contact. So we're setting that up for the division so we can start communicating that way. We're still having the meetings. Choose to come, choose to stay at home and live stream it. We are recording today. I actually remembered to record at the beginning. Hello, great. And I will put that up when on YouTube when we're done. Chuck, classic, just like the region. Chuck's been tooling away to update our website. And if you don't know, because I didn't know until he mentioned it, the website at the NER is actually a totally different program. So gone was the Joomla? Is that the word? Joomla was gone, and the new one is? WordPress, of course. Why didn't I know these things? This is why I don't do IT. So Chuck was basically at this point thinking, to speak for you, Chuck, that we'll probably blow up the old one and start fresh. Because it's just, the problem was with Dave Abrams had some accesses to some parts of that website we never got. So we can't completely change the old website, which is why it still has the old green logo on it, right? Because we don't have access to change that. So what I think we're going to do is the old boom, blow it up, start over, give Chuck a homework assignment, tell him to make us one that looks good with our new logo and everything on it, and So I'm optimistic, but yeah, we did unfortunately hit the reset button on that. I already talked about those updates. Also, James is both our treasurer and our secretary. So if anybody would like to be the secretary, I'd be more than happy to do it. I'll now turn the floor over for not the convention committee, as I earlier stated, but the Constitution Committee, the once every 10-year process that was headed by John Cam. So John, would you like to bring the members up to speed what we're doing there?
We had some long discussion about high tech. I'm going to go to absolute low tech, no PowerPoint. I stand here and actually talk to you with real paper. Those of you who don't know, every 10 years the division is mandated to review and update both its constitution and its bylaws. And having been a lawyer for more than half a century, I'll tell you how much more, or maybe in spite of that, I was volunteered. So here we go. And just by way of background, so everybody knows, officially, speaking of how many more than 50 years, this is the Nutmeg Division, Northeastern Region, National Model Railroad Association, Inc. And it is incorporated as a non-stock corporation. It was incorporated on November 3rd, 2000. The significance of that is being non-stock, it means that's usually the repository that way for organizations such as this, not-for-profits, non-profits, organizations that don't have shareholders and aren't looking to distribute their profits. So getting to that out of the way, when I looked at the two documents, the Constitution and the bylaws, the first thing that struck me was they're a mess. That's a legal term. The real problem being that stuff that should have been in the bylaws, that's in the Constitution, there's some repetition, and anybody who's ever had to deal with the contract side of the world, repetition is really anathema because that's where you get conflicts. Better to eliminate it. So if you look at what I did when I basically rewrote them, compare it to what I started with, you just see a massive red. I didn't even, it didn't even bother, doing a red line copy because there was more red on there than it was the original ink. But if you look at it carefully, you'll see I made almost no substantive changes to it. It was just getting the right documents and the right provisions rather than the right document. It just is a threshold kind of explanation. The Constitution is a statement of purpose. The bylaw is how do you fulfill that purpose? How do you go about doing it? It's a governance document. And that's where governance provisions, I moved all the governance provisions. Other than some, some grammatical stuff, the biggest change, and it's kind of thematic, it runs through both documents, is I added to that the ability to communicate electronically. And I brought it up to the current world so that now, as a legal matter, you can have virtual attendance at meetings. You can communicate by electronic media. That wasn't covered. We kind of did it. Everybody accepted it, so we'll just pretend it was ratified. So that the other thing in here, the other change, I think, and I'm not sure whether it's a change or maybe it's an explanation, was under the officer's provision of the bylaw. We have this situation where the superintendent serves for a one-year term, but can serve for 2 consecutive terms and then has to take a year off. But we've had situations not too long ago where somebody quit midterm. What do you do? Now, what I did add to this, and this is probably the only substantive change, whereby in a situation like that, somebody who had served in the last term and would have been ineligible can be appointed by the board to fulfill the balance of that term where the existing superintendent has resigned, without violating the limitation on two terms in a row position. That is the only really substantive change. Everything else is the same as before with the addition of electronic communication and virtual attendance at meetings. Now, having said that, a quorum is 15 persons. We have 15 people today.
We're right at it. Yes, I think we do have
If
15.
we include
Yep.
people online, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
In person, or
Yes.
virtual.
We'd have over 15.
So then we can have a vote. It takes a 2/3 affirmative vote to approve the Constitution and the bylaws, separate vote for each, as amended. Any questions before we go to a vote?
Well, no. There's no vote today. So there's two things I want to say. First of all, the documents are up on the website. Chuck put them on the website. You can read them at your leisure. I posted on Facebook that they were on the website, so you guys can go see it. We have to vote at the annual meeting, which is April.
Oh.
So we need 15 people to show up or tune in on April. So this is your notice to everybody who's on here. We need to see you next time. And then theoretically, if it's exactly 15, you need 10 of the 15 to approve to do it. We're required to do this every 10 years anyway. The very first one was what, in the 50s, right?
Yeah.
Like this has literally happened like for 7 decades to do this. So, so make sure you're here at the next meeting, please. And John just gave you an overview, so if you don't want to read it and you want to vote, the reason that one section about the superintendent is so important is we only have 3 board members. So when you have someone who served 2 years but is still a board member, and then one of the other 2 quit, you were forcing the 3rd person to be the superintendent, right? So that's the reason that was, and that did happen. Happened twice actually. The last 2 have done that. Those rats. Until I got stuck with it, right? Oh, I'm sorry. Who wants to run for superintendent? Let's see a show of hands.
Haven't been volunteer.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I guess two observations. Yeah. First, on November 16, 1956.
56. Right.
The second one is, if I would read what I wrote, I would not take over for a vote.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
I have the original charter.
You really?
Wow. On parchment?
Along with the 2 subsequent charters of the region. I have the original, I know it. I can probably scan them and send them to them.
I have to tell you, but I have some pictures from the 1956 stand trip I was on Canal.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, Ron, the process for coming up in April in the board meeting. The April annual meeting, we will do the voting for board members too, correct?
Yes.
And who's up for re-election? Is it Art? I know, I don't remember. It's not me.
Oh, it's John.
It's John.
Yes, John's 2nd term as director.
3 more years. 3 more years. So, but by the way, although it hasn't happened in my case, and it may not happen in John's, we're happy to have more than one person run if someone else wants to run too, okay?
Yeah, please.
Right. Right. So some of us got these jobs because everybody else took one step back when they said take a step forward, right? And we weren't smart enough to go backwards. But I would like, the board thing, there's only 3 board positions, but there's also the officer spots that we talked about as well. Really the membership, as much as you can help helps, right? And many hands make light work. So if you're interested in being a board member, let us know.
And so to be technically correct, in the notice of the April meeting, make sure you spell out in there that the Constitution and the bylaws will be up for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that. Good.
I will be sending out a separate email as a mini newsletter with that and a bunch of other items. And for everybody here or even online, the board of directors, at the last board of directors meeting, have approved all the changes. But just because we approve the changes does not make it official.
Correct.
We have to have the membership also, and that will be at the April meeting.
Right. So when we actually do the motion, we'll tell you that, you know, we endorsed it as the board members and the officers endorsed the changes. And it's pretty easy. Those are the rest of the 2022 meetings. You can see there. Plan your life appropriately. So I'm going to switch gears here. We did have an NER table at the Amherst show. We don't have a layout to go to today, so I was going to show you a brief video. It's about 10 minutes of the Amherst show. By show of hands, how many people got to go? Okay, does anybody want to see it? Well, we got people online. I'm going to show it anyway. So it's a pretty good little video of the guy made going around on the show. Except shovels. Except shovels. I'm not sure why that's button is so it has no sound in it, but.
about every type of modeling crop to be found in the channel. This one in particular specializes in live steam-powered modeling.
Pretty cool, huh? Thought it was pretty neat. That was an okay video. I thought we'd show that. So I told you I'd show you one that's not powered. There it is. Boom. That is also from Weathersfield. And yeah, I'm not sure if that even counts as a train. Is it a train? Would you call that a train? It's a horse-drawn trolley? Two horsepower? 2 horsepower trolley? Oh yeah, if you see it says Main Street and Weathersfield Avenue right there. Tells you where that one goes. Pretty cool, huh? Anyway, quick break and we'll go take 5 minutes or so, recharge your coffee, hit the restroom, and then we'll start up with the 2 clinics and then we'll be done for the day. All right?
Did you show me this morning volume studio? No. No. Too much all around. Oh. Yeah. What about that? Stuff
What'd you do, Jeff?
Just put water this time. Just water. Don't you worry. It's all okay, Ron.
I'm not worried.
What about you take here?
Oh, yeah.
It's good. It's almost
But we did, it just was too much, we lived all the time, we were 3.5 miles from my house, from the store. We were just, set up, most of the day, set up. Last time we tore down, I had checked back building, and I said to her, just 2 rooms lost, tear it down on Sunday. And she said, well, as far as I know, there's nothing going on in the building on Monday. So we came in at 10 o'clock on Monday morning to find tear it down, and there were people already in there doing other things. And so we're trying to take the layout down and pack it up around all these other people who are doing other. And it just was, if that's the level of organization there, it raised the whole question, how about Jeff Sawyer selling all the salary scale? You put a notice there, about Jeff Sawyer selling all his own stuff. As far as you know, it's the hospital.
I have to know it.
But it raised the question. Good, you're good after Sawyer, living glass and very. We had the same time, when I was looking at, located clusters, we went to study last time. I had, there was something I was learning, it was on my phone, we went in there to a part of the was, the big medical, sitting under glass there, and then we began to check, and so I stuck in the head and I asked him, then he started talking about the railroad. Started to end up. Yeah. And everybody should see it, there were rooms last year in 2003, and I was told, yeah, because he had,
Well, we were hoping to have a layout. This is he's not around today. So I don't know if the layout is like stuff for a while. As far as I know,
yeah, actually,
almost.
I'm very well on before that. More like water. Look down the audience. No, I haven't been there yet. And I can be either earlier if you want me to. I can do it. Okay, great. All right, thank you.
Never know. Got me a shirt, something like Warren. I make it, start marking on trains or something like that.
Yep. It's coming up.
I have one that says, model railroading, it's an addiction. Like, my wife doesn't think it's as funny as I do. She's like, I don't know if you should be wearing that around. I'm like, there's people with real addictions, and I'm like, this is a real addiction. This is driving my life. I mean, for goodness sake, look at my basement. But, all right, we're about ready to get started. So we got a couple of, I'll set the stage here for everybody who's online and in the room. So when we were having a conversation about this meeting, and we were talking about getting clinics for this meeting, the idea came up that we should extend the offer to the people who've signed up for the regional convention in September and ask them if they wanted to dry run the clinic here. So I run the clinics for the regional convention, so I asked myself, do I want to do a dry run? I said, that'd be a great idea. Right, I was the first guy I asked, and I said yes. So what you have here is 2 brand new clinics that I haven't given ever before. I'm using them as a dry run opportunity, right? Happy to take questions or comments as we go along. Feel free to interrupt me both online and here in the room. Basic idea for both of these clinics are both PowerPoint presentations, but I'm hoping to share things with you that this one for specifically is about the chassis system, but hopefully my example you can use for whatever railroad you're doing. I chose the topic of variation for a specific reason, okay? Something that really makes a model railroad look authentic and real and capturing the feel of whatever you're trying to recreate is that everything doesn't look the same. If you have 10 locomotives in the yard, they're not all identical, right? Now, I buy ready-to-run locomotives a lot, but I also paint and decal locomotives. And when I have that opportunity to paint and decal a locomotive, that's when I like to insert the variation into what the locomotive fleet looks like, okay? So that's kind of what this clinic is about. I did a clinic, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago about modeling variation in your freight car fleet, but this one's about specifically about locomotives. I know none of you are doing chassis system locomotives, right? So you're like, oh, great. But the reality is it's a tool set that I hope you take away for what you can do for your own road, okay? So we'll talk briefly about history, what is variation, types of variation, the roster. We'll talk about the one rule that was always true on chassis system locomotives. I'll put an asterisk on that one because there's one exception to the always rule, but we'll see it here as well. Talk about the standard scheme for new purchases, repaints, and non-standard paint schemes. So I chose this picture for a reason to begin with, okay? And this is Mexico Tower. It is the east end of the Cumberland Yard in Cumberland, Maryland. Chassis system did not paint every locomotive by the time CSX took over, right? So variation can be very obvious. This one's blue, the one behind it's yellow, but it can also be very subtle. And so those sort of variations we'll talk about as we go forward. So, just so you know, because I knew you all came here today wanting to know, so I'm going to tell you. Chassis paint scheme was created in 1972. The chassis system was not. Chassis system paint scheme took a while to get created, okay? The converse is also true. CSX started in 1980, but they painted the chassis paint scheme to 1986. It wasn't like an overnight switch, okay? As a matter of fact, they painted the last locomotive, C&O GP40 4090, which I do have a number board of, and some slugs after they had already started painting the CSX schemes. So I don't know if the dude just showed up, he was lazy, he was hungover, whatever, he said, I'm going to paint the old one. But they literally did not even do it in order. They didn't just all stop one day and then start with the CSX paint scheme. When it all ended, in 1986, about 75% of chassis system locomotives wore the yellow paint scheme that's seen in the previous slide. But CSX, so if you want a model variation, you can do it in CSX. That B&O paint scheme you saw, the blue one on the previous slide, there was a C&O version of that lasted until 2009 and was in Cincinnati, in the hump yard in Cincinnati. So talk about like, that is a 1972 paint scheme prior. Painted 1970 or 71 and lasted to 2009. So these conglomerate railroads sure get a lot of variation, right? There's also the very first locomotive to be painted was actually 1977, which wasn't a number that matched anything else. They picked 1977 because it was the 150th anniversary of the B&O, and they eventually put it back where it was supposed to be on the roster at 4164. Okay? So what is variation? Subtle and not so subtle differences among the locomotives and fleet and appearance to make it more prototypical. There's variety everywhere. You just got to look for it. If we went out in the parking lot, you would see that variety, right? Your locomotive roster is the same as that parking lot. There's going to be things that are different. If you just go and buy the Atlas GP40 and the chassis paint scheme, and every one of them is just like that, they're all going to look identical. So if you're trying to really capture the feel, that's what we're talking about. So what I call it the pyramid of variation. So what are the things? The types on the road, the classes in the type, the road numbers in the class, the paint jobs, the details, and weathering. What does that mean? So there are certain railroads that have certain types. James's shirt says GP16 for the family lines. There was no GP16s in the chassis system. So that type wouldn't be in the variation mix for my railroad, right? Classes in the type, because GP9, for example, there's at least 3 different types of version of GP9. Structurally, different versions, different fans, dynamics, non-dynamics. Those sort of variations exist in only the GP9s that the chassis system owned. As a matter of fact, the B&O ones all went long hood forward when they bought them new, and the Western Marylands had short hoods and went short hood first, and the C&Os had high hoods and they went short hood first. So that variation exists just for GP9. The road numbers in the class, for God's sakes, they go all over the place. Chenster's pretty good in kind of keeping them tight until you got to the big classes like GP7 and 9, and they're scattered all over the world. The C&O used, usually, if it's a GP30, they were in the 3000 series. The first 2 numbers were 30. When they had GP35s, they were 3500 series. And so they GP39s, 3900 series. C&O made it kind of easy. The B&O, of course, didn't. Right? They didn't use that. That'd be too logical. So their GP30s are in the 6900 series. Of course they are. Right? So that sort of thing you got to talk about. Paint jobs we'll talk about a little bit. The details change even inside the same class. Chessie loved the slotted battery box door cover so that you could literally get the corrosion off the battery without opening the cover. Now talk about lazy. I mean, let's be honest. Talk about lazy. We don't want the 2 latches in the hinge that are already there. We're going to do the maintenance to remove that, to put a permanent cover with a mailbox slot in it, so the guy literally sprays the hose through the hole. Like, we've done this maintenance so a guy doesn't have to click 2 buttons and bring the hinge down. Chessie did it all the time. It's one of those details that you see sometimes in a class, not in others, depending. Okay? We'll also talk about the level of weathering as well. So if you want to know what the chassis system roster looked like in 1976, this is it. By type. 1976 is kind of the early period of chassis, and then I modeled 1982, so this is pretty close. But the basic rule is for every 10 locomotives on the B&O, there's 10 on the C&O, and there's 1 on the Western Maryland. It's that different, right? It's really 1,000, 1,000, and then like not even 200 is the total real numbers. So I made a plan. So the first thing I did, towards this modeling variation was to make sure that I had the types correct. So on the left-hand side is every single type that was listed, and then the prototype total were the numbers from the previous chart for the 1976. And then the need was the ratio. So I created a 50-to-1 ratio, which would make about the right number of locomotives for me. Then I track how many of them I bought, and I track how many of them I've completed and are out on the railroad, and then some notes. That's just the type. I have a second tracker that shows the paint scheme. So it says the same thing, but it says there's a Chessie B&O, Chessie C&O, Chessie Western Maryland, Chessie Torco was a really unusual one, and then the blue versions, C&O, B&O, and a very rare Western Maryland blue one, and then the normal Western Maryland predecessor, circus and speed schemes. So that was to determine paint scheme variation. So I track that, try to make sure I'm not getting off plan. One of the things I talked about was there's always one thing on every Chessie system locomotive, and I'm going to show you the exception to my every. No matter what, that Chessie logo in that top picture is the front end of the locomotive. There is not a logo in the back. So that is the only rule that is consistent all the time. These two photos are the same exact locomotive on the same day. So the guy took the picture at one end, walked to the other, took a picture at the other end. So proof positive that the Chessie scheme never has two Chessie cats on the ends. Okay? So the standard scheme, probably the most famous scheme, is the ones that come on new purchases. Very important detail to note on the paint schemes, because it varies on repaints, is always where the top of that Chessie logo is relative to that orange stripe. And so when it touches like that, it's a new purchase paint scheme. All the GP42s were new, delivered in that paint scheme anyway. This is a GP40-2 because 40 was taken because C&L had the 40 series, right, the 4000 series. So when you got a 40-2, they started at 4100, and they kept buying them through the 4200s, and then the 4300s and the 4400s, they're all the same GP40-2. But this is the standard scheme and what you vary from. Here's a variation on the standard scheme that was only on the GP15T. People think of this T as a tunnel motor. It's not. It's a turbo motor, right? Because of the layout inside, they actually had to drop the radiator grills on the back. They're usually way up here. You got to drop them down here. Therefore, you're not going to paint the logo over them the way the previous, let's see how far back the normal logo goes. So that area is not available to paint because it's all louvers. So they went with a much smaller logo. And so this is the only logo that doesn't touch the orange line, right? As a matter of fact, if I go back once more, you know you've looked at too many Chessie locomotives when you realize that the ear is always yellow, although it's in the orange stripe. So the ear of the cat is, sometimes you'll see a bad modeling job, and you'll see that the orange ear, because the guy will just put the whole stripe right across, but the ear is always yellow on that stripe. So these were built specifically to replace GP9s a long time away from home, huge fuel tank, low fuel consumption locomotives. There was only 20 of them. There's 3 of them in that picture right there. But a unique paint scheme. Here's another variation of the standard paint scheme. The only problem here is, anybody ever seen a toaster? Right? These old GE units were so hot they burnt the paint off the side of the long hood. So if you're wondering what happened there, that didn't have a fire. They all look like that. That's how GE units, the paint did not hold up. But again, same kind of concept of the paint scheme. Blue, orange, notice the ears yellow, and then the orange stripe on the bottom.
There's also no orange on the nose.
What's that? Yeah, there's no orange on the nose of GE units. Correct. Speed and circuit schemes, so these really stand out. If anybody sees any of these units, these really are the only all black and the red and white schemes related to the Chessie system. Western Maryland, the older of the two, is the black and gold. They painted some, but not all, into the red and white. Historical note, anybody know why it looks like that? Does anybody know why the red and white one looks like that? Nobody? They took the management from the Illinois Central Gulf over to the Western Maryland, and the first thing the guy did is said, "You remember my orange and white ones? I want red and white ones that look the same way." So it's basically the same paint scheme as the Illinois Central Gulf at the time, and they just copied it and changed the orange to red, and they started painting it that color. So it's actually called the circus paint scheme, which I don't know why, but that's what it is. We talked about some variations of the old blue paint schemes. So most blue paint schemes have a yellow side fill. Not all. Some of them are what's commonly known as dipped. Looks like someone just dipped it all in blue. That's when you're really lazy. So there's just phases of lazy in the chassis system is really what it comes down to, right? How lazy are you? In particular, what happened in the Western Maryland, they had some of the oldest locomotives on the system. When they started retiring those, the C&O and the B&O felt bad for them and gave them some of their old GP9s. Like why, I have no idea. But, you know, it's like, hey, you got rid of your old used car? Here's another old used car for you. Like, okay, I just got rid of that problem. Thanks for giving me the same problem again. So what they did, of course, in laziness, they didn't repaint them. If it was a chassis system C&O, they just put WM letters where the C&O letters were, and then it looked fine. But if it was C&O blue, and this one actually, if you see the dark paint here, this was the really old one that used to say Chesapeake and Ohio all the way out to here. They just put a blue paint over that, and they put WM. So those are super rare. I think there's only about a half dozen Western Maryland units that were blue. The C&O, for some reason, I guess they thought the all blue ones hit too many people at crossings or something, but the C&O, for a few of their locomotives, painted yellow noses on them, which you see there in that picture as well. I've always liked that look with the yellow nose. It's just, it's not very common. There's not a lot of them. So to further confuse you on variation, if you're going to do GP9, say you're going to do 10 of them, some of them should be former C&O units that were also traded to the B&O. That's right, we're trading them like baseball cards here, folks. Just boom. Anybody gets it, anybody throws it away. So this is an old C&O unit. You can tell it's a C&O unit because it's short hood forward. That's where the logo is, and it's got that bell. You see the bell at the top like that? That is a C&O unique feature. It's having that very high nose-mounted bell like that. So this is a good variation to put in, and I have modeled that, and I'll show you my models here at the end. Alco switchers, the most unusual of all things is to paint an Alco. There's, I think, 3 Alcos that ever got painted in the chassis system paint scheme. This is one of them. It's a non-standard paint scheme. It does not say chassis system on the long hood like every other switcher in the world. As a matter of fact, it doesn't say chassis system anywhere. It just has the chassis logo on the nose, and for some reason, the only one that has the chassis logo on the cab. So another variation, this is something if you're going to model a bunch of GP40-2s, the very first GP40-2s came with the B&O letters being bigger than the road number. They standardized to the same size, but those first 32 GP40-2s came with what was known as the big B&O on the side. The first 13 came with silver trucks. Why? Who knows? Someone thought it would be a great idea. We're going to go paint them silver, see what they look like. They didn't hold up well, so they stopped painting them silver. As a matter of fact, some of them throughout time got painted back to blue. Torco, Toledo or Company. That's what Torco stands for. The Torco locomotives are the only chassis system paint schemes that say something besides B&O, C&O, or Western Maryland right there. And there were only 3 or 4 of them. And what they were used for, if you see these green, yellow, and red lights right here, these are remote control units. They were used on the ore docks in Toledo to push cars around. So we think it's cool to go see some guy with a battery pack today driving a locomotive in 2022. That's what these were doing in 1976. So truly unique ones. They named one locomotive. This is post CSX taken over, but this part was actually a chassis system, the only one they ever named after a guy. He was the guy who ran motive power at chassis system, Arch McElvaney. This is the last GP40-2, 4447. His famous thing was when engineers complained that the chassis system wasn't powering their trains enough. They weren't giving them enough power to run the train over the road. And Arch's famous saying to the locomotive engineers was, how many cars you drive to work today? In other words, you drove one car to work, shut up, one locomotive's fine, get over the road. So apparently he was quite a guy. So, and just for further variation in the Chessie roster was the all-gold locomotive. And this is the asterisk I was telling you that every Chessie locomotive had the Chessie cat on the front. That is not true. This is the only one that did. This is also the only one that is lettered. It's GM50. There's 2 letters in the road number, not just 50. And it was overall gold, and it had a 50th anniversary of GM logo on the front. That's what that is. That's why it's called GM50. It's celebrating the 50th anniversary of General Motors in the locomotive business. There's a brand new GP40-2. It got assignments like every other one. You see it here leading a train. You're just as likely to see it in the back of a train as the front of a train. A model I've actually modeled. The variation of the Huntington shot switcher, also known as the Dinky. It is also the only 5-digit locomotive on the roster. For some unknown reason, nobody knows on this planet why it's number 18742. Of course it is. Why wouldn't you number it 18742? So, they did have a green locomotive with a matching green caboose for safety. There was a safety caboose program. That is not to be confused by this. This was done at Cumberland for the shop to be safe in the shop, and they did paint one of their switchers solid green. This has actually been modeled. You can actually buy this in HO scale. Strange fonts, just so you know, the unusual zeros there were because the B&O loaned some of their locomotives to the Santa Fe, and the Santa Fe renumbered them, and when the Santa Fe brought them back, they used their own stencils. So you got some really funky stencils. Let's see if I got another one in here too. I think I have another one I'll show you. This was actually a locomotive that was damaged in a crash, and when they put it back in, they put the world's smallest Chessie logo in the front there. That's what's called the Chessie logo. But if you see it, it's barely there. It's kind of faded, but that's because it's a repaint. Talked about the orange stripe on the nose, James. The orange stripe on the nose shouldn't be visible on the side, but very few repaints, the guys painted them wrong. This should all be completely orange from the side, and only the blue would be on the top of the short hood, but here it's not the case. And that blue got painted down to the edge. There are 3 types of number boards on the Chessie system, another variation that you probably should have if you have a locomotive roster. I call these the square numbers, but they're always darker too. Then this is the more normal one, which are the brighter white rounder numbers. And then very few C&O locomotives have white number boards with black numbers on them. Very few. But that's it. Those are the total varieties. There should be variation in the RI model. If anybody knows what the ACI card is, the ACI card was an original car identification system that fell out of favor because it didn't work when it was dirty. It was a visual system. Unlike today, they use just like you Easy Pass, and they sense your car numbers as you go by, and they're pinging your beacon on the side of your cars or your locomotives. Back in the 70s, early late 60s, they started with the ACI card system. The ACI card system was somewhere like 60 to 80% accurate. Would you really want to track your fleet on a 60 to 80% accuracy? And it went down over time as these panels like aged and the stickers came, because it's stickers. They're reflective stickers on that thing. So some locomotives had them and carried them for a long time, but then some locomotives lost them. And when they lost them, since they repainted it, when it had the old B&O with the yellow, the old paint scheme shows through where the ACI card used to be. Primer showing through. Hey, another quality paint job there by the C&O shop, looking good. That thing's mint, it'll buff out. You're good. All right? This is seen more than once. There's several versions of this where, so keep in mind the whole locomotive was blue with the Capitol Dome on the front, or sometimes the C&O logo on the front. They painted the entire locomotive blue first. It's opposite of the way you would model it in HO scale, because we go lighter to darker colors when you paint, because they cover better, because we have really translucent colors. They did the opposite. They painted the whole thing dark blue, then they put a stencil sticker there, then they started painting the orange, then they taped off the orange, and then they painted what was left yellow. So the actual, these numbers and things are actually the bottom layer of paint. And they were covered with a mask, and when they got pulled off, you can still see the blue. So in other words, what that means is there's like 5 layers of paint right here. It's yellow, and there's orange, and there's blue, and then there's the original B&O blue below that. But right here, there's only 2 layers of paint. It's the original B&O blue, and then the blue that they painted one over top. So sometimes you see the nose, because that's where all the, just like the front of your car, it takes all the crap, right, from kicking up and stuff. You actually can see the old logo coming through. You can see the B&O. You can see the B&O and the capital dome coming through the nose of the locomotive. I told you during regular assignments, that's a better picture. I put that one in there so you can see the 50th anniversary logo. And this is my last slide to show you how I've tried to model that variation. Okay? So this is an old Santa Fe one. You can see the Santa Fe number when it came back, 4148. We had a picture of the GP15T. This is my Western Maryland blue locomotive. I did do the GM50, although the color is called brass and local, it's not called gold. Use brass, not gold. I did not show a picture of this, but the Western Maryland started painting before they renumbered. So from like 72 to 76, there was about 4 or 5 2-digit locomotives. That's very rare to see. Number 36, 40, 43, there's a couple of them. This is the only one that's the standard locomotives paint job, so you can kind of compare and contrast. This one I talked about doing the front C&O bell. So that's the front C&O bell version. This is the dinky that I modeled. That's a scratch build. This is the old C&O paint scheme with the lines. And this is an interesting one, an interesting story for you on variation. The C&O had a subsidiary called the South Shore, Chicago South Shore and South Bend, CSS and SB. That's a mouthful. Chicago South Shore and South Bend, which was basically south side of Chicago. And they had locomotives that they wanted to retire. So the C&O gave them GP7s. So there you go. Have a nice day. Merry Christmas. They numbered them into the 1500 series. The Chicago South Shore did. South Shore put a logo on the side. It was like a bow tie looking kind of logo on the side, and they numbered them in the 1500 series. They then went out and bought locomotives 10 years later that were new, like GP38s or something. And they said, hey, we don't need these old GP7s anymore. We're going to give them back to the C&O. So they came back to the C&O. We've talked about laziness more than once in this clinic, right? It came back to the C&O. It got its old 5700 series number, but they didn't change the number boards. All 4 number boards on the corner still say 1506. That's lazy. That's C&O laziness for you right there. So I modeled that variation, right? So the reason I bring these things out, and you may not have a locomotive company like the Chessie, which was a merger company, but the reality is, even if you go and say, you know, what did the Santa Fe look like at this period of time when it was only the Santa Fe? They've got a massive variation of what they do. And by doing that, and by representing all, you know, I have many more standard schemes than this. It's not like a one-off show on my layout. These are the ones that are variations to the theme. But those variations to the theme make it look and feel like a more prototypical roster, which is why I wanted to bring this topic forward. And I think that's it. Does anybody got any questions? Mr. May.
Who was the driving force of the C&O? Do you know which C&O?
So the history actually dates back, you want to go way back. Gosh, you can go back to the 40s and the 50s. But in the short order, the C&O and the B&O, C&O had financial control over the B&O had financial control over the Western Maryland. So the two of them, the very first merger that was attempted was the C&O and the Norfolk and Western. And there's a very few Norfolk and Western locomotives that are painted blue and yellow. And they started thinking this was going to go through. And it didn't. It didn't make it through the ICC. Enough people objected, they said okay, and they gave up on it. But you go today, you can find, instead of having black Norfolk and Western locomotives, there are blue ones with yellow letters that were done during that time thinking they were going to merge. And when that merger didn't work, the C&O looked and said, I'm going to take more stock. They had some stock already in the B&O. I'm going to take control of the B&O. And with that came control of the Western Maryland. And together, and they stayed that way for like 4 or 5 years before the idea of the Chessie system became, Chessie system was the name of the holding company always, the company that just held the stock. But to make the image the Chessie system took till like 1972. They took a big survey as to what they should call it. They took it to a graphic artist place. And it was a little bit like the, Santa Fe went with the big letters at that time. They said, oh, we want to be catchy, we want to be glossy. And it was the early 70s, so, fashion and, gaudy was in. So that's why the yellow scheme.
So where did the Virginia and the Seaboard come into the picture?
So, the Chessie system purely only lasted until 1980. In 1980, another holding company called CSX was created that controlled the stock of the Chessie system, that's the C, the Seaboard system, which is the S, and more, which was like real estate, and they had refineries, like pipelines and things. They had other businesses. But the Seaboard system in the middle, if you go break that down, was the family lines, all of those, and that's where you get the L&N and Atlanta and West Point and Seaboard and Atlantic Coastline and all those.
So that was in the 80s.
That was 1980 that they came together, but it wasn't until really 84 that they even started swapping equipment, and it wasn't until like 86 that they started painting CSX paint jobs. Because when they started CSX, James probably knows this, when they started CSX, they promised that they wouldn't paint CSX on a locomotive. They were like, no, it's just a holding company.
That'll never happen.
It's just a holding company, don't worry about it. Just a holding company, go back to your business. Right? So that they calmed everybody down. Right? Because keep in mind, at that time, 75% of the people in the Chessie system were not hired under the Chessie system. They're B&O people or C&O people or Western Maryland people where they had worked their whole careers. They didn't like the Chessie system as a merger idea. Mergers are unpopular usually because other corporate policies take over your policies, right? Your job changes and stuff.
Go back to the more modern.
Right. Right. I mean, so the B&O folks that controlled the Chessie system, though, leads to the slang term that the cat ate the donuts, which means the Chessie system ate the C&O's personality, right? And then the Chessie system abandoned almost all the Western Maryland. So the Western Maryland people generally aren't happy about the Chessie system either. And then CSX did the whole thing again. So if you're a Chessie fan, you feel the same way about CSX because they ruined the whole same thing. Correct. Yeah, but they'll say they changed the name and the Pacific is for Southern Pacific, right?
My friend John is a Union Pacific fan. He says, well, the Union Pacific came in and said, well, we'll merge the two names. We'll use our first name and your second name.
Exactly. That's exactly what they do. So, anyway, mergers, they're going to keep going same way. They bought later, to answer your question directly, CSX added the Virginian separately later. They added the RF&P as well. RF&P was Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac.
You see the north of southern mergers in defense against CSX?
Yeah, but the difference was the Norfolk and Western and the Southern going together make a heck of a lot more sense than the B&O, C&O, and Western Maryland go together. That Southern by the way, they were the biggest trading partners with each other to begin with. It's a perfect eastern railroad with a north half and a south half. Makes a lot of sense.
Well, I thought that Virginia went into Norfolk and Western, not Chessie.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah.
I might be wrong. Am I wrong on that one?
Yes.
I tried not to think of CSX. I'll be honest with you. I just try to not think about it. But okay. All right. So break into that one. Anybody want to need a break, or we're gonna power on to the last clinic here?
Power on.
Power on. Look at you guys. You're dedicated. This is awesome. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. So first time clinic. I'm calling this mostly done because you'll see on the last 3 or 4 slides that I'm going to show you what's not done yet, okay? But this is like mostly, this is like 80% done. This is actually a painting of Magellan going around the world, which I think is appropriate when I speak about the achievement program. The achievement program, a lot of people focus, like our Gordy, our president who was on there, who's a master model railroader, he's finished the program, right? When I talk about the achievement program, I try to tell people it's a journey. It's a journey towards MMR. You may never get there, right? You may not even want to get there. That's fine. You may not even want to do the achievement program. Tune out, hang up, have a nice day. You don't have to hear about the rest of it, okay? But one of the things this achievement program will do for you, guaranteed, it will make you a better modeler. That is the one thing you will take away from doing this. And it will take, because the requirements to do the achievement program will make you do things you haven't done before. It will push you out of your comfort zone and try new things. You have to try new things. There's too many things in this program to accomplish. No way you know them all when you start it, right? So we're going to go through, talk a little bit about what the program is, all the certificates. I'll talk about some of the certificates I've gotten, some of the certificates I haven't, I'm not even trying to get, and then some tips, okay? And there's the Dinky again. The Dinky makes another, did anybody see the NERX email? The Dinky made an image there too. The Dinky still exists at the Baltimore Ohio Railroad Museum if you want to go and see it. It's a 1915 electric battery-powered locomotive. It's the only one of its type, and it still exists. So it was the, Tesla thinks they were cool. 1915, this thing was pushing cars around, electric battery power. Okay. What's the achievement program, what it is, and what it isn't, okay? So first and foremost, the program has been around since 1961. We are almost to number 700. Said another way, in the history of the program, about 1 person a month finishes this. It's 12 people a year finish this. Not a lot of people. Why? Because it takes a lot. It's a lot to do. But again, some people focus on the goal. I am not someone who has focused on the goal to finish. I have instead built my model railroad, and as I completed things, I've satisfied certificates. So there is ways to do this better than I have done it. That's a statement of fact. I am not the most efficient at doing this program. I have seen and heard of people doing this entire program in a year or two. I have heard and seen, I don't know, they must have jobs. I have jobs, kids that want to eat. I want to eat. So I don't know where they get all the time, but they've apparently done it. And then, there's the youngest of all time, I believe, is Stephen Priest's kid. And his name also might be Stephen, who I think he finished the program when he was like 15 or 16. Right? If you know the rules, it is physically possible to do almost the entire program on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. You got to think to do it, but I'm putting it out there as a challenge. You could do the entire MMR on a 4x8 sheet of plywood. It'll be the greatest 4x8 sheet of plywood layout you've ever seen, but you could do it. Okay? And of the 700, unfortunately, hey, if you were 80 years old and got it in 1961, you're probably not still with us. So there's about 500 living MMRs around today. Gordy, who you just heard, he's 34 years old, right? I think he said. So he's one of the younger MMRs out there for sure. So what is the program? The program is divided, and I started this little banner on the bottom is going to be on every slide. Okay? First and foremost, it's 4 categories: equipment, settings, engineering ops, and service. I color-coded them so you can see the difference. And in those 4 categories, there are 11 certificates, and they're listed there. To make MMR, you have to complete 7 total certificates with at least 1 in each category. It's going to be important in the end. Remember that. 1 in each category, 11 total. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Check. Done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Done. Check. Any 7 you want, as long as there's one in each category, and you're done. Okay? If I could foot stomp one thing, the number one problem with the achievement program, people read into the requirements. No, stop it. Stop reading into the requirements. You are making it harder on yourself for no reason. And I will show you when we go through this how I've done the opposite. My goal is to short circuit the requirements. Hey, don't hate the player. Hate the game, right? How are you going to solve the problem of this to get it if this is what you want to do, right? All right. So the very first one, and notice I color-coded here, author turned green, because this is the author certificate, the first one I got. And notice service turned green. That category is satisfied, so 1 out of 11 is satisfied, but 1 out of 4 is satisfied. Okay? And the requirement is right here, and this is copied and pasted off the NMRA website. Okay? You need 42 points. Period. End of story. Not 43, not 112. You need 42 points. How do you get 42 points? National publications, an article or comma, 3 points per page. NMRA magazine, 3 per page. A coupler, 2 per page. How many people saw my well-hole flat color article in there? I think it was 2 pages. That would have been 4 points. I already have the certificate, but it would have been 4 points for writing it. That's a tenth of the way there, right? If we had a division magazine, same thing, right? Oh, hold on. Well, shut the front door here. What's this part? Clinics. This is my second one today, right? At the division level, given it an NMRA-sponsored event, I'd have gotten 4 points today towards author. But hold on, clinics are in 2 different categories. Clinic can also count towards volunteer. Not the same clinic at the same time, but if I'm good on author and I'm given this clinic, I can go count those hours, that time for volunteer. Okay?
Give it a second one.
There's only one thing you got to remember. This is the thing you got to remember when you give a clinic in NMRA to count. You have to give a handout. You didn't get a handout today because I'm not counting. Okay? I'm too lazy and I landed at midnight. But the reality is, for all the ones that counted, when we get to there, any clinic I counted towards my volunteer or author certificate, they're all on volunteer for me, I gave a handout with each one. Okay? But that's it. So how did I do it? I got it in 2009, the year I actually joined the NMRA. I submitted all of these articles. I was the editor of the Chessie System Historical Society magazine, and modeling editor. I still am today. I had all of those in there. The B&O modeler, I had a bunch of articles with them. And MRC, Model Railroad Craftsman, I actually had a kit bashing article in there. Gave them all. I counted all these Chessie System Historical Society articles as regional. They actually said, no, they're national. So I actually submitted what I thought was 42 points. They said, no, you had 82. So it was overkill. But the reality is it doesn't matter, right? You write the articles, you get them published, copy the article, hand it in, get the certificate. And this is what your certificates look like, in case you don't know. That is the actual certificate I got for author. Okay? So now you kind of understand what we're doing? What we're doing? That was one certificate. Everybody got that? All right, onward and upward. So let's talk about building cars, freight cars. Okay? The requirement is 8 cars, not 9, not 10, 4 types, of which 1 has to be a passenger service. In passenger service, does it have to be a passenger car?
No.
No, wait till you see mine. Okay? Don't read into the requirements. It has to be in passenger service. It doesn't have to be a passenger car. All right? 4 have to be scratch built. 4 have to be merit awards. Do the 4 scratch built have to win the merit awards?
No.
No, don't read into the requirements. You could make 4 scratch built, and then you could take 4 super detailed ones and get a merit award off them. They could be totally different models. Or they could do the same. Or it could be 2 and 2. Who knows? Don't read into the requirements. This is how people go and make this way harder for themselves. I colored red the merit awards through this whole thing so you can see what the merit awards ones are. Okay? I satisfied it with 2 snow flangers, 2 well-hole flat cars that most of you read the article in the Nutmeg on, or the coupler on, 1 baggage car, not a passenger car, it's a baggage car, and 3 cabooses. Okay? But as you see over here, cars got me the second category and 2 total certificates. I want to let you know when you scratch build anything, this is going to hold true for everything you scratch build in the achievement program. 90% of the parts have to be scratch built, less those exceptions. You do not have to scratch build your wheels and your couplers and light bulbs and all that stuff. Okay? You're not, trust me, I'm not down there milling wheels in my basement to get through this. Right? They're intermodal or intermountain wheels, just click them in. Same thing with the trucks. Trucks are on there. Just use the trucks, right? But 90%, 9 out of 10. So what does that mean you got to do when you scratch build? Got to keep track. You got to count how many pieces go into the darn thing. So if you use a Grant Line window, that's a commercial part. But if you surround it by, you know, northeast scale lumber that you on the side that you cut it out of, that northeast scale side is a scratch build part. Because you cut it to shape and you cut the window hole in it. But the window counts as a commercial part. That ratio has to be 9 to 1. 90% scratch build. So these are my cars. So scratch build, scratch build, scratch build, scratch build. I also got the 4 merits on the same thing. Don't have to be, but that's how I did it. You notice something else unique? 2 pairs of 2, right? You have to have 4 types. You don't have to have 8 different types. You have to have 4 types. So I have snow flangers, well-hole flat cars, cabooses, and a passenger car. 4 types. That's all that's required. Why did I do pairs? Anybody? Why would you do a pair of a car?
Caskets.
Nope. No, none of them's casket. Why would I do pairs? Bingo. It probably takes 25% more time to do the second one compared to the first one. Dude, you know, married with kids, full-time job, right? Try to make use of my hobby time appropriately. You can do these things in an assembly line fashion. It's easier. It's quicker. So that's why they're pairs, okay? So, and also, although the lids aren't off the 2 snow flangers, because those are Grant Line windows and Grant Line doors, to get the numbers up, to get to 90%, like this is a flat piece and each one of those ribs is a separate piece. If you open it up in the middle, there's an interior in that car, right? There's controls to run the flanger and puts the blade up and down. Snow flanger, in case you don't know, that's the flange in the front right there. It's an itty-bitty little snow plow that's used when you don't have a lot of snow. That's what a snow flanger is. And the B&O made them out of old boxcars. So that's an old wooden boxcar that got converted to be a plow, basically. Okay? But this one, I love to point out to people. I had a picture of the Capitol Limited in 1982. I sent it to my friend. And I said, dude, I want to put the Capitol Limited on my railroad. I know nothing of Amtrak cars. What are these cars? I can't spot a passenger car to save my life. He writes back and he goes, locomotive, this, you know, Cato, boom, you know, next one, baggage car, this, blah, blah. And he writes, shorty baggage car. Somebody made a really bad kit a long time ago, but you can't find it anyway, gonna have to scratch build. And then he listed what all the other cars were and where you buy them. And I went back to that shorty baggage car and I said, say that again? And he's like, yeah, some company made it and you can never find it. They made like 50 kits and they were warped and everybody hates them. You got to scratch build it. So I did. And it was in passenger service. It's actually an old ambulance car for the U.S. Army. They were ambulance cars that were converted into baggage cars for Amtrak. No seats, no interior. It's for throwing the bags in. It's easier. Yeah, inside that roof, you can take that roof off and look. It looks like the inside of a baggage car, right? There's lights in the top. I put, you know, so I added details to it, but it's much easier than doing an actual passenger. All right. Volunteer. I will not bore you with reading that. Oh my gosh, you can't even read it. But to be a volunteer, you can satisfy, you need 60 time units. And you can get them for doing all those things on the left. Look at the bottom one again. Live clinics. Do we get the NER convention coming up? You looking for points? Come on down. Counts as regional points to do a live clinic, both for volunteer or offer. But here, you can see, oh, I didn't color that one green. But, yep, equipment should be green on this one. All right. And so I achieved that with the primarily live clinics. You can see right there. Those are the clinics I did. Submitted, got it, done. Motive power. Okay. Much like cars had 8, right? Half of them had to be scratch built. Motive power has 3, one of which has to be scratch built. But all 3 need to get merit awards. Okay? But you look at the things on there, the things you don't have to make yourself, those are the exceptions of things you don't need to make. You don't need to make the motor yourself. You don't need to make the gears yourself. All that stuff you can buy. Right? You just need to really make the shell and the frame, the side frame and all that stuff. Okay? But what is motive power? Again, think about the rules. What is motive power? Any type of steam, diesel, electric, locomotive, traction unit, maintenance vehicle, or type of self-propelled vehicle that runs on the rails. I'm going to show you my favorite example of the achievement program at the end here. But just keep in mind the definitions. This is how you got to think about what you're doing. Okay? How did I do? I did it with the 3 dinkies. CNO bought the dinky, Chessie ran the dinky, CSX ran the dinky, CSX retired it, and it's in the museum today. So I did the exact same model 3 times in 3 different paint schemes. No reason you can't. They could all be in the same paint scheme. Doesn't matter. That would count. Okay? I put on there it took me 7 years to finish, not because this was a hard project, but because I started it when I was in Afghanistan. I came back. I started working on the layout. This was a great example of me not working to achieve the achievement program. Like these are so small. They run on a little, what's the name of the little powered truck you can buy? Gadsden Drive or something? What's it called? Some sort of, yeah. So it's basically a powered truck. They came out with powered trucks, and that's all it is. It's the 4 wheels and the part in the middle, and it's self-contained and it runs. And it's DCC capable. Can you believe it? Like, it's unbelievable. That's what's inside this to make it run. It's got no weight though. Like you could barely pull one flat car with it, right? But it runs. That's what's required for the thing. It's got to go back and forth, right? But I made those. They have an interior in them. If I picked it up, they do have the batteries in the front. You pick it up, you'll see the batteries in it. So there's a lot of detail in it. It took me 7 years to get that certificate, not because it should take you 7 years, but because I put it aside for probably 5 years. Okay. Official. Official's last one I've gotten. The requirement. 1 year in a national office. So Gordy, check. If he doesn't have official, he's already MMR, but if he doesn't have the official certificate already, he would get it for his first year being the president of the NMRA. 2 years at the regional office, 3 years at the division. Okay? If you read this, these are the regulations, all the officer positions you got to serve as, and I highlighted in red the one I did. At least 3 years in the office as a voting member of a regional board, if other than the regional president or national trustee. You guys remember Andrew? I was on the board when Andrew was the superintendent. He goes, man, I'm not going to those regional board meetings. You go, Jim. And I went, okay, sure, whatever, something I can do. I'll dial into it. That started my clock. I wasn't even the superintendent, but I was the voting member of the regional board. And by the way, that's not consistent on every region, but the NER invites all the division superintendents as voting members of the board. Check. Did 3 years of it. End of 2018. It was 19, 20, 21. So, done. Structures. One of my favorites. Okay. I do not have the structure certificate yet, so we're going into the area right now of I'll show you how close I am, but this is to let you know where I'm at. So structures requires 12 structures. Did I say buildings? How many of you, when I said the word structures, thought of a building? Probably all of you. That's not a structure. Okay? A bridge is a structure. Trestle is a structure. Anything can be almost a structure. Okay? A dock could be a structure. But you have to do 12, 6 scratch built, 6 merit awards, 6 different types. Of the 6 different types, one has to be a bridge or a trestle. Okay, you ready for this? Nobody sees the other 6 besides the merit awards. Okay? Same thing with the 4 for cars that don't have to be merit awards. Nobody even sees them. You have to show them what you did, but nobody's going to come to your house or you have to take them to a model contest to get people to look at them. As long as they're scratch built or super detailed, you can submit it. Okay? And I'll tell you how I satisfied it with pictures coming up. But this is important. What most of the scratch built stuff we do are basic shapes of wood, plastic, and metal. Go buy strip styrene and cut it to length. That's a scratch built part. Go buy Northeast scale lumber and cut it to length. That's a scratch built part. Go make a mold and pour your own castings. People have those, you know, you can buy rubber molds and put plastic castings. Scratch built part. If you want to scratch build a bridge, you actually could take a real bridge, like go and get your micro engineering kit, make a mold of it, take it out, pour the plaster in it. You've now made a scratch build part that looks just as good as the one you bought from microscale engineering. That's a scratch build part. Okay? So I put this up here to let you know these, and I'm saying earn merit awards. I know Ken's over there cringing at me since he's our AP chair, because he hasn't seen this building yet. But I finished this building, highly confident it's going to get a merit award. And I'm working on this one to be the 12th building. Okay? That one's not done. You're like, Jeff, there's no doors, windows, or roof on that thing. I got it. That's where it is today. But the other 4 are done. Those towers are all done, and they all got merit awards previous. Okay? So I believe I will finish this year. Why am I confident? Because that building's almost done since I took this picture. And so it'll be finished by the convention. By September, easy. I'm hoping to be finished by March. I'm hope to have those 2 buildings, that red building and that fruit exchange building, judged by March. So here's my other 6, which are scratch built or super detailed, and one's a bridge. Okay? Scenery. Someone once said, and I'm not sure if it's true, that scenery is the easiest one to get. More people have scenery than any other. And for HO, it's 32 square feet of scenery. So you heard Gordy talking today that he had to go buy some more track to get the square footage up. That's exactly what he meant. So he probably measured his thing. He's like, oh, dude, I'm at 28 square feet. I got to go get 4 more square feet of scenery. So you got to buy some track, extend the siding, whatever, and scenic that. Okay? That is HO scale. It goes up if you go to O scale. It goes down if you go to N scale. So you don't need to do 32 square foot of Z scale, right? It goes down. I don't know the portions, but yeah, it goes down. Whatever the numbers are posted, but most of us do HO. Right? So to earn a merit award, they got to come out and judge the scenery that you're putting in there against the terrain, structures, background, lighting, and realism/conformity. And what do those mean? I think I got pictures. Here's where knowing the requirements helps. Okay, this is just part of it. I got detailed shots coming up on the next one. My area still needs to be judged. I'm going to do it at the same time that building's done. So I'll bring the judges out at the same time. They can judge for scenery at the same time they can judge for the last structure. So I get those. That should finish structures and that should finish scenery. 5 of my 12 structures are in this scenery portion. You do not need to make separate things. You can put them in here. They're not judging the structure for an achievement certificate itself. They're judging on how it's placed in the scenery. So if there's a foundation, and the foundation is actually in the terrain. It's not just sitting on top of it. That's what they're looking for. So that is good. This is saving effort. You are not making things for a waste of time. You're making things for your layout, and they count. And in this case, they'd help. Okay. So here's some of the areas of Martinsburg, West Virginia, right? So that's NA Tower at the top. So scenery-wise, it really was gravel. The structure is really buried in it. This is one that won a Merit Award, right? There really was the ice thing there. The guy really did drive a red and white truck, right? Over here, a couple of the period correct signs that I scratch built, the road, get the water drainage on the side. That's one of the things that they look for. Curbs. The street is actually weathered. It's not just painted one color. Same thing over here. This duplex house with bushes and grass and dirt driveway and dirt path that kind of they wore through the grass going around the outside. The rail yard, sticks of extra rail barrels, settling tanks, extra bricks, standing tower. These two tanks were actually there. I don't know what they're for. Oil or something they use to service. Same thing, just kind of the theme of having the scenery correct. Changes in elevation, right? It's not a 4x8 sheet of plywood. There's underpasses and there's hills and, it looks like the real terrain. There's retaining walls, right, over there in the upper left-hand corner. Retaining walls and things. So it's got a lot of scenic elements in it. So I'll get that judged. But in that scenery is that fruit exchange. So I've got to get that fruit exchange done, building done, so that the scenery will be complete. So that's what it's waiting on. So this should be a twofer. This should get 2 for 1 right here, which would make, if you counted at the bottom, that's 7 certificates. Remember I said I'd come back to that? That's 7 certificates, Jeff. Congratulations, you're done. No, you're not. Engineering and ops, which by the way I should have that tan color. It's not satisfying. I don't have civil, electrical, or chief dispatcher. So let's talk about one I haven't yet completed. Electrical has a list. A, B, C, D, and E. A tells you basically what your area needs to be electrically. B gives you a list of 11 things. C gives you a list of 23 things. D and E say make a schematic of the first couple. Okay? So you need to construct and demonstrate an electrical control simultaneously, independent control of 2 mainline trains containing at least a siding, a reversing loop Y or transfer table, so one of those 4, a yard with 3 tracks, an independent switching lead, which I have in Martinsburg, facilities for storing 2 locomotives, you saw those in Martinsburg, and a power supply with protective devices. Most of us run DCC. This was way harder before DCC to figure out how to do this. But all of us that run DCC, you plug it in, beep, beep, 2 wires, boop, boop. Guess what? You can run 2 locomotives and satisfy that requirement right there. You just have to make sure you have the track that satisfies all those other things. The only thing I do not have is in the green. I do not have a reversing loop today, so I have to add that to finish the certificate. I bought the little reversing DCC little board. I'm not making it. You don't have to make it. Nobody's making you put resistors and transistors or whatever, the insulators and crap in a board. You don't have to do that. You can buy it. And then go just install it. A list of 11 things you need to wire and demonstrate. I already have a turnout. All of us have a turnout, right? Everybody? Does anybody have one loop, a track, and not a turnout on it? No. Everybody's got a turnout. Check. That's one of the 3. Crossover. Many of us who have 2-lane, double track main lines, you got to have a crossover. What's a crossover? 2 turnouts, face to face. That's what it is. It's not that hard, right? Check. Got that one. And when you look through all the rest, they're like gauntlet track and all these other weird types of track layouts. The one I came to was, you can buy a 3-way turnout. You don't have to make these. Nobody said you make these. You don't have to make them. You just have to prove electrically that they work. You don't have to make it. You can buy it. And you can buy a 3-way turnout. And so in my staging yard, I found an area to put a 3-way turnout. There's no 3-way turnouts in my actual prototypical area. But I said, oh, I can put one in staging right here. Got an extra line, store a couple locomotives in that extra That's it. That's all you do. That would be the 3. So A would be satisfied, B would be satisfied. C has a list of 23 things. I'm not kidding you. You'll be paging through this going, oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh my God. You don't have to do all of them. Stop. You don't have to do 23 things. You have to do 3. They give you 23 things to choose from. You only need to do 3. And the 3 I'm going to do, electrical turnout position indicator of 4 turnouts. Electrical turnout position indicator for 4 turnouts. They sell a cute little switch. It's a push button. It's got a little LED. It tells you it's on the main line or it's on the diverging line. You just got to wire it up. For 4 turnouts, you're done. Okay? Grade crossing with electrical actuated warning system. Walters sells it. You buy it, it's $39. You set it up. It runs. When the train runs over it, the little blinkers go right there when you cross the street. Check. Done. That's 2 of the 3. Right? And then the last one I'm kind of hemming and hawing about because we had that neat one on Arduinos. The gentleman last time gave us in October, gave us a brief on the Arduinos. I may do something like that, or install a command control throttle bus line with 3 or more locations. I currently have 2 locations. So if I extend the bus line and have one more place to clip in, I could satisfy it that way too. When you read this on the website, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is impossible. Then when you read it again, you're like, oh, no, whoa, I'm reading into it. Read it again and you go, oh, this is easy. I could do this, right? And then the schematics, you ready for this? I don't know the damn thing about schematics. I'm not an electrician, not an electrical engineer. Don't really know what the little battery symbol is. Don't know what the ground symbol is. I bought that electrically actuated warning indicating system from Walters. You know what comes with it? Schematic. You know what I'm going to do? Draw my own. I'm going to copy it. Schematic. Okay? Don't make it harder than you think. Okay. So there were 3 I didn't complete at this point. I'm hoping that I can get electrical done, and I know I'll get the other 2 done, but hopefully get electrical done by the time of the convention, but we'll see. I did not do these 3 others. I just want to talk about them real briefly. Prototype models has a higher requirement of matching photographs or videos or maps. Okay? Scenery can be anything. I could do scenery on this on the Weathersfield police station. I can make 32 HO square feet right here, right? And it would win if you could get it. You get the award and they'd be like, that's great. But the prototype one has very specific requirements in terms of how many structures have to be represented, or freight cars, or cabooses, or locomotives, and a lot of pictorial evidence is what's needed. So I'm doing Hancock, West Virginia. I have 7 photographs of Hancock, West Virginia, and I am making those cars. I am making those locomotives in the pictures. So that B&O, on my previous clinic, you saw B&O 6655. It has the blue C&O with the bell. I pointed out how to bell over the top. I have a picture of that in Hancock, West Virginia, next to 2 freight cars that I've done as well. That's part of the prototype scene in Hancock, West Virginia. I'm not going to finish it in time. It's going to take longer to finish, so that's why I'm not done. Civil, to me, civil is the hardest one. Civil, you have to hand lay track, hand lay turnouts, things like that. I just don't feel like I'm there yet to do that, so I probably may never tackle that one. And the other one that I would have done so I didn't have to do electrical, chief dispatcher is probably the most fun one to do, because what you do is you go out and you operate. The hardest part of it, though, is the hour requirements. And I'm going to try to quote this off the top of my head. You got to do 40 hours of operating, but I think it's 40. But 10 of it has to be as the dispatcher, which is the hardest 10 hours to get, because chances are, when you go visit a layout, the layout owner's not going to let you be the dispatcher on the first day. You're going to be like, yeah, huh, nice try, kid. Have a seat. Here, go run that engine, right?
Yeah, come on over this one. I'll let you guys
right.
dispatch.
So if you dispatch for 10 hours, you can get that. I was operating on 2 layouts that both shut down because of COVID. So And then unfortunately, one of them, the guy had a water leak, and now he's got the damn thing completely dismantled. So, but yeah, so those are the ones I didn't do. I told you I was going to give you some tips, right? I mentioned some of them along the way. Think about the requirements. Think about all of them together and how you can do this and get as many certificates as you can. But I also want to point out my crane example. This is very important because you wouldn't think of this unless you really read the requirements. A crane, that one on the left, is a structure. It's in the ground. That crane in the middle, it's not powered. It's a car. That crane on the right is a diesel-powered or a steam-powered self-propelled crane. That's motive power. If you gave a clinic about making those parts, you can get credit for author or volunteer. And if you put it in your prototype scene or your scenery, it can help you get those certificates too. So just as an example of how you look at things and how you can use them in multiple certificates to help yourself. Because when you look at each one individually, and you look at the list of 11 and the list of 23, and it looks like it's the most daunting task in the world to finish this. But it really isn't if you just chip away at it, right? Just keep chipping away at it. Try go challenge yourself to do it. The reason there's 4 types of cars you got to do is so you don't just make 8 flat cars and call it a day. Go challenge yourself to make a caboose. Go challenge yourself to make something else. That's why you do that. So, good stuff. Hope to be awarded this year. Hope. Only taken me 13 years to get to this point. You know, just 13. Just 13. It sounds so easy. Right. So, again, it only took me 13 years to get to this point for one reason. I didn't go to my bench every day and say, how do I get an achievement certificate? I did. I went to every day and said, what do I want to work on? And this is just kind of how it all fell out, right? But the people who are driven, the people who go and start this program say they can do it in like a year or two if you really focus. I can't imagine somebody's not there.
Well, someone,
Unemployed.
no, I'm going to point to Mark. But I told Mark yesterday that if we get this layout, that I could see 4 certificates we could get without doing anything other than the paperwork.
Yeah, so that's
He's already done it.
So that's a great point, Ken.
It's already sitting.
That's a great point. I want to say one thing I didn't say in the entire clinic, but excellent thing you reminded me of, Ken. A lot of people aren't doing the achievement program because they're scared of the paperwork. They don't like the paperwork. They don't want to do the paperwork. Paperwork's really pretty easy. Be honest with you. To fill out the paperwork for any one of these certificates, collecting everything, typing everything, doing the pictures, hour per certificate. Hour. So a lot of us have built railroads that haven't ever done the paperwork. So you can now, if you've built a railroad, you can go home and start checking off the requirements and do exactly what Ken said, to say, hey, welcome, congratulations, day 1, 4 certificates. And here's the gaps you have on the other 3 you need to go do, so go work on those gaps and you'll get this done. And why is it important? It's really only important if you want to continue to try to be a better modeler. That's what the achievement program is for. It's not so you can put three letters at the end of your name and go, yeah, I'm MMR, right? It's not. It's so you can ask yourself, I would have never tried half the things that you saw in my pictures if it wasn't for the achievement program. And going, that snow flanger looks pretty cool. I wonder if I can make one of those. Let's go see if I can make one. Well, I made 2, right? It was a fun to do, fun project to do, fun project to research, fun project to make a plan for, fun project to build, right? But I never would have thought of doing it before the achievement program. That's kind of the neat part about it. Does anybody got any questions for me? No?
No, but anybody who's interested in getting started, you can contact me.
Yeah, Ken is our AP chair. If you didn't know, I think every division, if not every, almost every division has an AP chair, Achievement Program chair, and Ken is ours. So Ken can help you on the journey if you need it. He can, answer any questions you have. I know I have sent him emails in the past, and if he doesn't know the answer, he's going to the big boss man at the regional and the national level to get me the answer, right? So it's a good program, and it's great. Any questions? Yeah.
Jeff, this is Steve Meyer. I got a question.
Sure.
I got a comment, actually. I think your clinic is really excellent. This is one you're going to give at the convention, correct?
Correct. I was dry running both of these.
All right. I would say you need to modify perhaps the title just a little bit. People might not grab onto the real essence of what this clinic is, if they just think it's just another telling of, you know, what I did and how I got the certificates.
Okay.
The essence is absolutely how you can take the shortcuts, how the whole you know, acquisition of AP certificates is much less daunting than a lot of people think at the start. And
yes.
Your clinic goes through really effectively showing people how to consolidate their work, how to shorten the time spans, and you know, maybe just a few words somehow in the title, but certainly in your clinic description, you know, you absolutely need to emphasize how everybody needs to see this, and they'll be encouraged, like I am myself right now, seeing that this is not nearly as daunting a task as a lot of people think. And when they do your clinic, they'll be encouraged to go out and actually do it.
Good. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It was good, really good.
Yeah. And I think if you talk to some, you know, Ed O'Rourke, who's our president of NER, just got his. Chuck Diljak, you saw his. You've seen a couple NER members lately in the back of the NMRA magazine finishing their MMR. We've had a few in the Northeast region recently, which is good. So there's a lot. And by the way, everybody who finishes it, it's instantly like a resource to answer any questions. So if you ever see anybody in the back of, or you want a list of the ones for the region, Ken could give you a list of them in the region if you need any questions, anybody near you. They're more than happy to answer any questions as well. So it's good. It's a good program, and I'm happy to have been doing it. So I just got to finish that stupid fruit exchange. My wife even knows it. Like she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going down to work on the fruit exchange. I got to finish the fruit exchange." It's hanging out there. Oh. So anyway. All right, folks. Well, thank you. I don't have anything else. Anybody got anything else for the meeting today? I appreciate everybody coming, staying online. Mark your history books. This may be the one and only time we ever had an NMR president at the NMR president at our division meet. That's pretty cool. So thank you, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you in April.
And anybody who